Okay. Good. Okie dokes. Om Agyanat Mirandasha Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. We're going to be covering the last sort of passage. These are the outlines that we have. If you want to, I do follow the outline, but I don't read from it so much. But if you'd like to have it, then it's here. And we have questionnaires at the end, so the outline can be very helpful in going through that. So in the last passage, Krishna basically contrasted the material path from the spiritual path, the path of karma versus the path of karma yoga. The reason for him making this distinction is because externally they both look the same. A spiritual person can be your next door neighbor, or the yogis doing asanas next to you. But you won't be able to tell just by looking at them externally because their activities appear to be mundane. So Krishna made a distinction between the path of karma and the path of karma yoga, specifically by emphasizing the difference between their knowledge or their buddhi, calling the spiritual path the path of buddhi yoga. I've already made all the buddhi jokes, so I'm not going to be making so many here now. I've made them in earlier classes. So the difference, he makes a distinction in terms of their buddhi or their knowledge, and also in terms of the results that they get. On the path of karma or material life, the result is perpetual bondage. We heard called as karma bandhana, and perpetual ignorance. And on the path, spiritual path, the path of karma yoga, the result is enlightenment. So Arjuna has a question about that. Krishna only kind of implicitly indicated the inner enlightened inner life of the karma yogi, but Arjuna has specific questions about that. So that's the passage that we're going to take up now. So we're starting from verse 254. It's a very important verse of the Gita. Arjuna uvacha stita pragyastra kabhasha samadhistasya keshava stita dir kim prabhashita kim asita vrajeta kim. So Arjuna asks 4 questions here about the enlightened person. First question, what is the symptom of the enlightened person? What is their symptom? Everything has a symptom by which it is recognized. I don't know if I spelled that right anyway. All right, you recognize, for example, a rich person, there's a symptom that indicates their wealth, or a musician, there's some symptoms that indicate their musicality and so on. So what is the symptom of an enlightened person? Nowadays, many people have their various ideas or opinions about this. They'll say an enlightened person means ... And they'll put some nice quote up on Instagram. They quote themselves. I always find that fascinating because it used to be that you quoted like reputable persons of like actual achievement and understanding. Now you just quote yourself and put it in a nice box and colorful box, and you get likes and all that. So they have their different ideas. So Krishna also has his idea. What is the symptom of an enlightened person? Kabhasha samadhistasya keshava. Kim prabhashita, what is the language of the enlightened person? Language, or how does the enlightened person speak? Does he speak softly or does he speak loudly? That is the meaning. So we'll see what is meant by speak. Third question, how does the enlightened person sit? In half lotus or full lotus? That is the meaning? Such external meaning? No. Fourth question, how does the enlightened person walk? Very fast, like me. I have gazelle legs, I was told. Recently, I have really long gait and I walk quite fast. So the enlightened person walks very fast, like a gazelle. No, that is not the meaning here. So the symptom is straightforward. How does he speak? The meaning of this question is, how does the enlightened person respond to life circumstances, to duality? Especially reversals, which are usually very telling. And how is that different from the person who is not enlightened? Right? So you know, for example, suppose you go to the hospital and you get the news that you have, let's say, cancer. How would the enlightened person respond to that, and how does the person who's not enlightened respond to that? That is what is meant by speak. How does one respond to life circumstances, to duality? And what is the difference between the enlightened person's response, either in his mind or if asked by others, what will he say? So that is the meaning by speak. How does he sit? Sit here means how does the enlightened person, the yogi, how does he get himself or herself from running after the material world and just sit peacefully? Just like we sit for meditation, many of us who have a meditation practice in the morning, we sit to chant our japa or to meditate, but our mind is running after the world, isn't it? Running after the making plans for the day, or running after the revenge you will get on some person that has crossed you, some plan you're making in the material world. Running after the world in some way. I will make money, this and that. And it's very hard not to do that. In fact, even to sit down for 5 minutes peacefully is very challenging. As soon as you sit down, body starts to get like jittery for no reason, actually, nothing to do, but the body just feels like anxious. You have that experience? Sit down, can't manage 5 minutes without feeling like you got to move around. So how does the enlightened person say? How does the enlightened person keep themselves from running after the material world? Even for practitioners of spiritual life, they often will let go of material things only to find themselves deeply agitated by the things they've let go of and then running after them again after some time. So that doesn't happen to the enlightened person. So how is it that they keep themselves from running after material things? That is a very extraordinary quality, actually, to keep oneself from pursuing matter. How is that? How do they sit peacefully and just chant Hare Krishna or meditate? And how does the enlightened person walk? So the enlightened person also moves around in the world. So how is their movement different from the movement of those who are not enlightened? The enlightened person will eat. So we are also eating. The enlightened person is also going to the bathroom. We're also going to the bathroom. So how is the enlightened person going to the bathroom and our going to the bathroom? What is the distinction there? How is their movement in the world different from our movement? So this is Arjuna's question. Very nice question. All these different answers. So Krishna will begin to answer them one after the other. So we'll look at verse 255. In verse 255, Krishna is answering this first question. What is the symptom of the enlightened person? Prajahati yada kaman sarvam partamano gatan atmane vatmana tushta stita pragyasa tadochate. I'm reading the translation here. O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So this is supposed to be a description of the symptom of someone who is elevated. Prajahati yada kama. First symptom is that they give up all desires. Sarvam partamanogatam, which are manufactured in the mind. Our mind has a very clever way of manufacturing various concepts of how we will enjoy in this world. And we often get lost in those concepts. Sometimes you're daydreaming, just like I see in the japa time in the morning. It happens to all of us, I'm sure. But you see this thing happen where Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and then all of a sudden, and they don't know that they're being observed, but they are being, we're also Hare. What you thinking about, brother? You can see the mind, they're daydreaming of something, and then you get lost in that reality. Happens all the time. Of course, that isn't the mode of passion. The other one is just the mode of ignorance, not thinking anything. But many times you see this daydreaming is happening. It happens in the Bhagavatam class or some Gita classes going on, the daydream begins. And for the speaker, we can immediately tell when someone is what we call spacing out. There's this glaze thing that comes over the eye. It's something very, it's very easy to spot, like when the glaze comes over the eyes. So they're like listening, and all of a sudden you can see this. they just check out and they're getting lost in some idea that the mind is concocting. Usually some idea of grandeur, or they're lamenting about the past. Whatever world that the mind is creating, it causes us to either hanker or to lament. Right? Isn't it? You're thinking about some future that you'll enjoy. You really enjoy. Or you're thinking the sad face is coming. We oscillate between these two, hankering and lamentation. And in this way, our life is passing, living. In some sense, you can say living vicariously. I often think of it like this. It's not uncommon in modern times for people to live their life vicariously. They live through their computer avatar in a video game, or through their favorite movie character. They have even whole conventions for this thing, Comic-Con or something, where people like dress up as their favorite comic book character and so on. They have whole YouTube channels dedicated to just comic book figures and talking about their lives and their powers and what they do, what type of things they like to eat and drink. That's completely ridiculous. It's like a completely fictional character, but they're living through that character or through their favorite athlete or movie star and so on. So we have this problem in conventional life that we live vicariously. And also for the Bhagavad Gita, the soul, in a sense, is also living vicariously through this body and mind. Whatever's happening to this body and mind is really the life of another. And the soul's life is actually different, or different from that body and mind. But the soul is preoccupied with that body and mind. And so in this way, he's also living vicariously. And that mind is concocting so many desires to move the avatar in this virtual world to this place and that place. And we're getting lost by that. So the first symptom of the enlightened person mentioned here is that they give up all desires concocted by the mind. They stop living vicariously because they begin to live in their true nature, in the true self. So what does it mean to live in their true nature? Atmane vatmana tushta. It says here that they are always satisfied in the self. Atmane vatmana tushta. Atmana tushta means that they're able to live inside of self, and they derive great satisfaction from that. For a person who is not self-satisfied, one of the common mistakes of modern world is that they don't feel satisfaction, because you can never feel satisfaction by living vicariously. You can only feel satisfaction when you live in your actual true nature, in your actual, even in the conventional sense. So one of the big mistakes of modern world is that they feel that sense of incompleteness. And so they reach for the material world for some object to complete them. And then the horrible reality is that after they gain the object, which is gained with great difficulty, they realize that they're still not satisfied. They're frustrated. And then their life continues, or in some sense, it becomes even more suffering because you thought that was going to help the satisfaction. That satisfaction never came. But actually, even to have successful anything in this world, specifically relationships, there has to be some self-satisfaction. And when you're moving from a state of satisfaction, then everywhere you go, you'll actually experience happiness. The example is given in one of our other literatures, the Bhagavatam, is just like a person who's wearing shoes. Then wherever they go, they don't have to worry about pebbles or anything. Wherever they go, they feel the same or equal level of comfort because they have shoes on. In the same way, the self-satisfied person, wherever they go, they feel the same satisfaction everywhere because they're living in their true nature. Whereas when you don't have those shoes on and you walk, for example, in Puri, the beach, in that hot sand, you have that experience, boy. I remember seeing Puri is one place in India, a pilgrimage place. And the sun is blazing there like all the time. And the sand is like, it's like walking on fire. It's really heavy. And I saw so many of my friends playing like in the sand, friends from India. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guess it's okay. And then I ran this. I had to run back to I was like sprinting back. I was like, how can you walk on this? And probably because their feet so blistered up that it became like a sort of shoe. Anyway, so I couldn't walk on that surface because I didn't have the feet for it. And if you walk on the ground, it has so many rocks on it, it hurts. Of course, when you walk on the sand that's in the shade, it feels very nice. So your feet will always be disturbed by these different conditions because they don't have shoes on. But once they have the shoes on, then wherever they walk, they're feeling the same shoe only. And therefore there is no disturbance. That's a nice example, actually, Bhagavatam is giving. So when one is self-satisfied, wherever they go, they feel the same satisfaction. That means also that the nature of the self is intrinsically blissful. And so living in that nature, they do not have to suffer the how you say, they don't have to suffer the vicissitudes is a good word. I was thinking of the attacks of duality, because they're situated in their self. And those who don't live in their self, they live vicariously through their minds and their imaginations. And naturally, they suffer constantly. So this is the symptom of an enlightened person. They're able to give up that mind and the desires therein and live in their true self. Of course, that is also the goal of yoga, as identified. Stop the vrittis of the mind, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. For what purpose? Tada drashtrum atma, tada drashtrum, what do you know? Avastana, so that they can stand in the true nature of the self, live in their actual self. So this is the symptom. Any enlightened persons here? Any takers? No enlightenment. Okay, so if you want this enlightenment, you should do? What should you do to get this enlightenment?
Give up the
Karma yoga. Thank you. She's first class. She is karma. She got the answer. Huh? All right, don't worry. You don't have to feel embarrassed. She's been around for many years. You do karma yoga to get this enlightenment. That is what Krishna described. All right, we're going to cover how does he speak also. We may have to cover these next ones later because they're long verses and give you a chance to do the questionnaire. So how does he speak, the enlightened person? What is the meaning of speak? Oh my God, Jai, nice. You heard the answer? He's listening very nicely. Did you get that, Daniel? Follow his example. Daniel has that. He does that glaze thing quite often. Something always gets in his heart for sure, but he often has that glaze thing. So follow his example. Very good example. Yes, how does he speak means? How does the enlightened person respond to life circumstances? So Krishna mentions that in verse 57 and 58. Very nice verses. We'll look at them. Dukeshu anadvigna manaha, sukeshu vigataspreha vitaraga bhaya krodha stitadir mune uchate. Dukeshu anadvigna manaha means when there is dukkha. Dukkha means, the commentators identify dukkha means the threefold miseries. So there are threefold miseries that are constantly accosting a living entity in this world. Every day. Miseries caused by the body and mind. So that is what do they say, a constant staple. Miseries caused by the body and mind. Yes, you experienced today misery caused by body and mind? Yes. Daily. Miseries caused by other people's bodies and mind. That people can be in a bed bug body or mosquito body. I always joke about it. It's no problem. As soon as you go to sleep and you turn off the light, they like do this thing where they like circle and rush to go back to sleep. And then as soon as you hit the light, we still here. It's a great misery, actually. It's deeply miserable. And then you finally manage to go to sleep after an hour. And then when you wake up, you got like bites everywhere. So this is called miseries caused by other living entities. There's adi bhautika klesha. And then there's miseries caused by nature. What means the demigods? Adi daivika klesha means miseries caused by the devas, such as drought or flood or too hot, too cold, and so on. So these are the threefold miseries. Everyone is being attacked by these threefold miseries. One of them, two of them, or all three of them at regular intervals. Some of them is a constant interval, like that mind, boy. That mind is like constantly there. I always joke with this mind. As soon as you wake up, it begins preaching. And the whole day it doesn't stop. As soon as you You go to the bathroom. You go in the shower. You go to put your clothes up. The whole day, the mind, you're on the train, saying, you're at work with the computer. You're doing sadhu sangha with devotee. It doesn't stop. Finally, you're about to go to sleep. You try to sleep also. Sometimes the mind keeps you up also, doesn't allow you to sleep. For 2 hours, you'll be kept up by the mind. Finally, just out of sheer exhaustion, you go to sleep and then you dream. The only time you get a literal relief from this mind is in deep sleep. It's like a coma. That's why we like deep sleep so much. It is very relieving. And then as soon as you wake up, doesn't stop. It's a very cruel mind, actually. It's cruel. And if we don't practice yoga and get control of that mind, this is our lot. So dukkha, 1, 2, or all 3 are constantly giving trouble. So when there's dukkha, these threefold miseries, anudvigna manaha, the enlightened person is not disturbed. Anudvigna means there's no agitation in his mind. Even though accosted by the miseries, he remains undisturbed. Anudvigna manaha. Sukeshu vigata spriha. And when there's something that is happy situation coming about, vigata spriha, he does not generate more desires for perpetuating that happy situation. It's very difficult to even imagine. If you're getting a good situation, you want that situation to continue perpetually. And so happy situations generate more and more desire for the same thing. And that is called as raga, attachment, and informs our ignorance. But for the enlightened person, when there's a sukeshu, happy situation, vigata spriya, there is no increase of desire. And when there is suffering, no disturbance. And the commentator said the enlightened person will simply think the situation, good or bad, has come because of my karma. And in the case of those who are devoted to God, they will think this is simply the arrangement of God. Therefore, they will not have any disturbance in the mind this way or that way. Thinking either is my karma, and this means that they're thinking that, or if someone asks them, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you, they will simply say, oh, it is my karma. Or devotees, it is the grace of Bhagavan. Like that, they will say like that. And then if they're very advanced, they may sing some bhajan while saying that. No disturbance. Vidaraga bhaya krodha, they have given up attachment, fear, and anger. This means this is a person who speaks like this. In the next verse, it's a continuation of the same idea, but it kind of says, this verse 57 speaks of how he speaks. And verse 58 is what he doesn't speak. Yasarvatra anabhishnehas tata prapyo shubha shubha na abhinandati na dvishti tasya pratishtati. So tata prapya shubha ashubha, when the enlightened person obtains auspicious situation or inauspicious situation. Na abhinandati na dvishti. He does not praise the good situation, and he does not criticize the bad situation. It also says, this first line is kind of actually interesting. Ya sarvatra anabhishnehas means that he looks at the whole environment without, it actually means without affection. Or, yeah, basically it means without affection. Usually because of our affinities and affection for the world, that is why he's able to disturb so much. We have deep, for example, we have deep, profound affection for this body, isn't it? Our affection for this body is profound. And how do you know it's profound? Because we can do anything for the pleasure of this body, isn't it? Just like people say, I love you so much. I don't know what I would do without you. And then as soon as that person does something they don't like, they just, bye. The end. Why? Because you caused some disturbance to my body and mind. And for the pleasure of the body, we have deep affection. And that affection causes bondage. They actually call this as the sneha pasha, which means the rope of affection, which begins with the affection for the body and extends from there. So yasarvatra anabhishnehas means they're without this sort of excessive affection. for the material world and the things that are happening here. That also allows him to speak like this or not speak in a certain way. We praise or criticize a situation because of our affection for the world and the body. That affection was not there, was not really disturbed. Just like when something else is happening to someone you don't know and thus do not care about, then how do you hear that information? With profound indifference, right? Profound indifference. Suppose you hear about someone got, I don't know, attacked in the street. Oh, that's horrible. And then after that, you go and eat prasadam, and you forget about it 2 minutes later, isn't it? You cannot help it. It's just part of being in the material world. Of course, if you have a little bit of a false ego where you're kind of like a do-gooder, you might feel a little bit more like, and then after 4 minutes instead of 2, then you go and take your food and you continue with life. Isn't it? That is natural. So in a similar way, the enlightened person, he does not have any undue affection for the world because he realizes that he's different from the world. Therefore, he's able to not speak in this way, not praising or not criticizing the good and bad situations that happen respectively. The reason we are lost in praise and criticism is because we have a lot of affection for this, beginning with the body and then the world. Otherwise, if we didn't have that affection, you would speak with a lot of indifference, actually, or you would feel mostly indifferent. It doesn't mean that you don't see what needs to be done in a particular situation, but it doesn't like disturb your heartstrings so much. You're just like, this is the duty I have to do, but otherwise not praising or criticizing, very kind of removed. Naturally, because again, the body and mind is really the life of another, and that virtual world that the body and mind finds itself in at the same time. So this is the symptom and the speaking of an enlightened person. How he speaks, and also we heard what he does not speak as well. So we're gonna probably stop there, and I have the questionnaire for you all to work on. I would kind of like to get into how they see it because this is my favorite question out of the bunch. There are a lot of famous verses that come within this answer. But I'll probably pause here to give you a chance. Yeah, okay, we get a question, Michelle.
Is that indifference a feature of buddhi?
Is that indifference a feature of buddhi? Yes, that indifference is a feature of buddhi. And so, in fact, in karma yoga, again, Krishna's emphasis, he calls it as Buddha yoga. He actually won't refer to it as karma yoga until chapter 3. Well, and so in chapter 2, he actually refers to it as Buddha yoga. And so it's all about getting the buddhi to be fixed, getting knowledge to be fixed inside the buddhi instead of, evaporating with the onslaught of duality. So yes, this indifference is a feature of buddhi. And in fact, if the buddhi is filled with, the more sattva that comes in buddhi, the more indifferent it becomes actually, which is, And you will see that also in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, Arjuna is going to ask the same question actually, but in different language. What is the symptom of one who has transcended the modes? And when Krishna is answering that question, he gives the same point actually, that such an enlightened person becomes neutral towards all the happenings in this material world.
Seems like maybe a little contradictory towards those like sadhus, those holy people who are at a high level, and who are feeling that like paradukkha, like feeling the suffering of others as their own.
So what is that paradukkha? That's a good point.
And they're also lamenting that they've wasted their own life, of course, out of humility in so many different ways. They're also outwardly lamenting, I've wasted my life. I haven't, attained self-realization.
Yes. So there's a few things that could be brought up with this sort of question. Number one is that this is devotees in their life, and it's different from the generic state of enlightenment, which is kind of what we're hearing about here. Krishna is not talking about a devotee yet. He won't actually bring up devotees precisely until he begins his discussion of bhakti, beginning with the middle 6 chapters, beginning with chapter 7. So here we're hearing about a general state of enlightened life. It will be subsumed within the life of a devotee, and it will manifest in somewhat unique ways, but this is kind of like the ground of enlightenment. And then devotees are moving on that ground and manifest in a very unique way. You've mentioned some of those unique ways. But as far as their a sadhu's concern for the world, because Krishna's also talked about this in the very onset of his teachings, about the pandit not lamenting for the living or dying. So you see that they do lament and they do feel par dukkha dukkha, you referenced that verse. But what is it that they're feeling for? That the life of ignorance that is causing the suffering, right? So it is not just the material story that is happening to the body and mind, but rather the ignorance that is causing the soul to identify with that. For example, Prahlad Maharaj, he specifically says he's lamenting for the souls in his prayers to Nishingadev. Shoche tato vimukha chetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharam udarato vimudan. Famous verses there. Shoche tato means I'm lamenting for them. Vimuda, the veritable fools, the very foolish souls. Why? Vimukha chetasa, because their consciousness is turned away from God. And as a result, indriyartha, their whole meaning in life is the senses. Maya sukhaya bharam udarato vimudan. And they're thus made to lift the burden of ignorance or maya and suffer perpetually. So he's feeling for them also, but not just for the particular circumstances of their life, but rather the ignorance that is causing them to experience that. So devotees, particularly who are kind of following the path of devotees, Mahajnayana Gatasapanta, we have to be careful that we don't become too absorbed in the story of the soul and his bondage, but rather look at the root problem. That's where we're primarily concerned about. Not that we don't resonate. Suppose the soul is coming to you and they're suffering because of some body and mind situation. We're not going to just probably become neutral face and like, well, that's not really happening to you. That's just the story of the body and mind. You shouldn't identify with it. But at the same time, we keep that perspective as clear. And as we're advising them to get through that vicissitude that's taking place, then we're giving the guidance in such a way that that root problem is also being addressed. In other words, we're not going to lose perspective of what's actually happening. That ignorance is at the root. So this is the ground of enlightenment. This is enlightenment spoken about generically. And that it applies to devotees. It's subsumed within the life of a devotee, although it's manifesting in unique ways. And we'll have to study the Bhagavatam to see the variety of ways in which it manifests. But this is the ground that we want to, the ground that we want to reach.
I was also thinking, you were talking about this, like living vicariously through game characters and through all these different mediums.
In the mind.
Yeah, through the mind and body.
Yeah.
But I was also just thinking of like Jagvara and how he was telling the king, like, this is just he was carrying a king.
Yeah.
And like he was saying it's just a temporary position that you're a king and I happen to be the servant.
Right.
And so any time in the future the situation could be switched.
Right.
You could be carrying me on the top.
Right.
But he said, but still, right now I'm in the role of the servant. So he was like, I'll do whatever you please.
Yes.
So, and then we also hear just like living according, acting according to one's nature.
Yes.
Tamed.
Yes.
So it seems like we have to almost live vicariously through the body and mind to some degree in order to attain.
Oh, we have a body and mind. Enlightenment doesn't mean it suddenly goes away. So living vicariously means you're living with the identity that I am this body and mind, and I carry on my life accordingly. And living in the self means I have a body and mind, and it's like any other object that is being used for whatever purposes, in the case of an enlightened person, for their higher purpose, which may include, especially as the example you're giving, or Arjuna, it includes duties, it includes fulfillment of practical things. But they're not living with the identity that I am this thing, as your quote from Jadabharata is also saying. So living vicariously means living with the identity that I am that individual. Just like in the conventional world, when people live vicariously, they deeply imagine themselves to be that character or that avatar, and they're thinking about those thoughts and maybe even dreaming about it. It can go that far. So they're really living with that identity. Whereas to live in your own self means you live with that identity. I am the soul, and I have this body, and it was be used for various purposes. In our case, the purpose of serving Krishna and the mission of the spiritual master, namely the Bhakti Center in our case. Just throw that out there. Haribo. Okay, is there any other question? Otherwise, you can take 5 minutes because I couldn't finish the whole passage, but I have the questionnaire. Normally, we break off into little groups and just work on the questions together to ensure that as much assimilation of whatever we're hearing is going on as possible. Oh. Hey guys. Daniel says I should do yogi stand-up comedy. I think they were laughing about the mind. Okay, so we're doing the questionnaire now. I can post it. No, just the section we're covering, and you can just cover the first 2 questions. I'll post in the chat box for all you guys online. Where is he? Yes.
We're doing it in pairs.
You're doing it, yeah. You can break off into pairs, and it kind of can be like a discussion. You can also write it down if you like. Well, I'll give about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. It's already 7:40. I usually like to end at 7:45, but we'll give about 10 minutes and then close it out. If there's any final question or comment, you can do it, and that's generally how we'll do it. Okay. Lord. Okay, these are the questions. Oops. Okay.
I was trying to remember.
Okay, we'll be back. Yeah, we were saying, we mentioned like speak means something specifically, sit means something.
Yeah. So, but that's over here on this side.
What is
So,
the
these are what would these individual.
These will be the answers. So these are the answers. Like Krishna's answers to this question. And this one is Arjuna's question. Like, what does symptom mean Arjuna's question? What does sit mean Arjuna's question? Here's Arjuna's question.
Yep.
So that was 255. Actually, it's there in the outline also.
Here it's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty. It's very good. So I don't want to read so because that's easy. But I would say, well, to sum it up,
So many desires are attacked. So you can't sit peacefully with the demon.
Without well,
You can bring the straws. Yeah, no problem. I don't have this.
Very good. So yeah, like, I would say,
Oh, sorry, I think we got
no attachments.
Yeah, the mind is attachment desires. Yeah, you said desires.
so that you don't have that thought going on.
Did you get everything? So not actually elaborate
Yeah. And also that the reason that those desires are kind of circumvented is because it's self-satisfied. Self-satisfied person can just drink water and be completely at peace. Whereas one who is not self-satisfied, even if they're off the whole world,
Do they have thoughts, like there are thoughts going on? I am drinking water. And this is just I'm drinking water, I'm drinking water.
Well, Krishna, he'll get into that a little bit more. It depends on the type of yoga practice one is. Like, for example, in the traditional yoga system, the whole idea is to just stop self-thought, emotions, to restrain them, to stop them. So that is one type of yoga practice. And in devotional traditions, the idea is to make your thoughts one after another, complete with the glories of God. His name, His word, His qualities. So it depends on the yoga system that's being applied. What would that inner thought be like? Or we'll hear about these other systems. Otherwise, they meditate on like these sort of like knowledge scriptures, and they just constantly meditate on the statements of scriptures about the nature of the self, the nature of the world.
So this is the thinking intelligence. This is very
They're applying their intelligence to
try and understand.
yes, understand. Because with those, the idea is that through knowledge, you can just kind of like see through the illusion. Like illusion is around us everywhere, but through knowledge, you can kind of see through it. So that kind of through knowledge, you can just see through the illusion. So constantly your mind absorbs these illusions that talk about, what is control, what is returning to yourself. And their thoughts will be filled with that. In Ashtanga yoga, they actually try to stop all their thoughts. They concentrate on one object and try to restrain all their thoughts. And that's a very difficult process. This will be analyzed later in chapter 6. Yeah. Welcome.
The next verse says, my dear king, a self-satisfied person. However, one who is driven by the senses, especially by the tongue,
The symptom of the enlightened here is not asking why.
You're constantly why? I mean, I'm not sure. Like saying, why? Why? I mean, when an adult, you should ever why, but I'm just saying, I don't know. That spins your mind to go into the part of it. Yeah, well, you could think of it as why is one thing, that's kind of a desire. That's it, it's given of all desires that are based on speculation. Right? So think about your question. Yeah, so why? That's one type of desire. And there are other type of desires we have. You think about desires we have. Your economic status, you have so many desires. Depending on your political situation, you have so many desires. So all these desires are give it up. What's your kind of desire? Because they're experiencing something else. Why not?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because they're thinking about something else.
Oh, I see. Well, you gotta be thinking about something.
Yeah, Krishna will get you this later. But,
Oh, wow.
yeah, their inner life. But whatever it is, they're experiencing their own nature. So once you experience your own nature, it's just
Purposes of the soul.
yes, that will, yeah, depending on your process, that will be less. And Ashtanga yoga, they try to actually stop all sorts of thoughts and desires, including those ones that are considered beneficial.
Certain things
It's not like studying, it's reading.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember one.
In the end, they keep meditating on knowledge so they can see connection. Bhaktis, they try to hear about that.
Of course, it
meditate. So
There are sort of contrast that there's usually desires
Someone, anyone who inspires you.
yeah, there are different types of tantra actually. Basically, the idea of tantra is to kind of spiritualize.
Oh, nice. That's
And it
cool.
becomes
And
like
there are
a
different types
static,
of tantra.
because it's like invariably
Right.
isn't like
So
very
let's
much.
do that.
Wow.
And then this general concept is to take
So I'm just reading it.
So yeah, this is actually a very profound thing. It's hard to imagine a desire with
craving, obviously.
yeah, craving is one such desire. Lamentation, that is another sort of thing that happens in the mind.
You're saying karma a little bit. Sort of cleansing.
Yeah, yeah, we heard about that experience passing for your tank. Yeah, that's should have an operator of the process of mind when it comes to this and not usual. What is that? What is that like? How is this? What is that actually like? And you can look at some other stuff to see how you're doing.
And
How does
the way they speak
Just
is
developing something like you can't bring.
greatest speaker is free from
Right. Like to be
It's from,
from
just have one verse on it. It's like telling you
Yeah, that would be part of it. Krishna basically mentions that when there's a happy situation,
only reading the verse.
it's not a particular mood, it's
translation.
not over avoided. And when there's a suffering condition, he's not describing it. It's
Sometimes it's like
very hard to even imagine that. Like, suppose you get an opportunity for cheesecake. You just love cheesecake. And when you get the cheesecake, you're like elated. Right? You become like totally ecstatic. And I like
And I also
it. Very good.
that's
That's your book.
well just for me because we're like chanting.
Education, I mean, so there's some suffering his mind is not disturbed. It's very hard to say that. I mean, not. Are you working on that with you?
Vibration is very
Thank you for participating in class. Keep coming, huh? You can teach us all something. How to start Krishna consciousness.
It's interesting in
Just the reading itself is like a
12-step program. Alcoholics Anonymous. It's very similar to, it just reminds me of, that's what you're giving up, you're giving up your
Yeah.
And they have 12 steps of which to give up those things, which is to give out, to give in, to forget, to not feel resentment. It's weird, I'm just like,
They're definitely paralyzed.
yeah.
No, no, wisdom all the similar current.
Well,
They're definitely-
came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone has to think that.
You want to keep it? Okay, but bring it back to the next class, okay? I'm counting on you.
What are what should we show what the difference is between these questions of significance? Aren't they all kind of the same?
No, so they're more of a related, but symptom just means generic characteristic language. One can understand within themselves that enlightenment is coming. And the rest of the question is,
Doesn't speed, sit, and walk come after symptom?
yeah, so symptom is something like, a symptom is something that's more internal. The speak, sitting, walking is something external, so people can see. It might indicate some level of enlightenment, like, wow, look at how they're responding, or wow, look how they're not running out of the spirit into the noise. So one of them is like an internal thing, which is recognizing that the other category is something that if someone was carefully looking, they can kind of see that there's some indicators. And of course, what speak means. All right, ring, ring, ring. Time is up. A little bit longer than. All right, ring, ring, ring. So we're done. Let's see. Andre has a question. If there's any final comment, or just if anyone wants to share like a quick realization, anything you got from today?
I was
Yeah.
Just in terms of like a sage that, or how does a person speak, not praising or despising,
Yeah.
not on that level of the body or like criticizing something.
Right.
And I was just telling Daniel I felt like he fit that category. I've never seen him speak ill of everyone else.
Oh,
And then
so
he
sweet.
and then he said, "You don't hang around with me enough."
That's a quality of this age.
He criticizes, but it's just for fun. He doesn't mean it in his heart,
Yeah,
like
balance.
some of us do. So he's pretty pure. All right, y'all. Thank you all very much for your participation. All right, on Ted's side.
You keep these or you put them back for next week?
You can put them back for next week. You can keep it if you're actually going to bring it back and use it, but I doubt this. So. Later online.